So I'm going to do something that's figurative. It's probably my favorite subject, but to be demonstrating it in public is probably not the smartest idea. So I'm sort of, I make dumb decisions in that regard, but I can't help it. I love the figure. So bear with me, okay? Um, Typically, I work with, I was going to try and answer all the questions that I get. Holbein paint. This is 140-pound paper, cold press, and my brushes are sable for the most part. Some are synthetic because they're making some really good synthetic brushes now, and the sables are getting pretty cost prohibitive. So, but I still have some sables, but my next purchase or two will probably be something that's synthetic. I had done a value sketch yesterday, and then when I was packing up, I found one that I had already done. So now I have two, and they are a little different. So what I have to do is decide which one I'm going to work from. I probably should work from the one that I've committed my time to most recently, which would be this one. I don't know if you can see those. I like to do a value sketch before I paint for a number of reasons. One is it gets me thinking about my subject. I commune with it. I get a little bit more connected to it, you might say. Then it gets my gears thinking about what are, for me, some of the most important aspects to the painting, which are the value relationships. You can see here that I have two different studies, and one is showing a little bit more light, a little bit more, I think, identification, if you will, in the torso area. This one is not. But I have to pick one. So I think I'll go with what I did yesterday, even though this is pretty nice. So, okay, so and what I also like about doing the value sketch is that it offers me an opportunity to move away from literal to whatever degree I choose. And then when I paint, I don't necessarily feel that I have to be locked onto this either. So I like to have that freedom to watch what happens on the watercolor paper. A lot of years of teaching I have seen how students work like the devil to try to make everything happen here as they see it here. And I think that can be a mistake. I think for me anyway, I like to watch what happens here and make a lot of decisions on the fly, if you will, because things happen and I can't predict all of them. Before I get started, I should say that I'm pretty user-friendly, so you can ask questions. If I can't answer it because I'm trying to think and paint at the same time, I'll just tell you that I'll get to it in a moment, but feel free to ask questions if you like. What I do when I begin the painting is I look at where my darks are and how I can get to making a dark statement as soon as can be said to be reasonable. I like to have that dark so that I can judge against it for my subsequent decisions about value. Sometimes I can make that dark statement right off the bat, and sometimes I can't. But I'm always looking for a place where I can get some kind of dark in the painting. I usually begin from top and work down. My paper is at an angle, so that encourages the paint to run downward. And with that in mind, I'll probably start on the top. And some of the darks maybe can happen in the area of the face, maybe not initially, but I'll get there soon, because after I get past this area, I will be in the area of the torso. I like to make connections when I paint, so I like to have the paint, the figure in this case, feel as if it's being woven, I should say, in and out of the background, as if they're holding hands. So I like to have that happen as I'm painting, and so I can see possibilities up on the upper part of the sketch here, that maybe I can have some of the background incorporated into the head, and maybe there's some places where I can move right in from the beard into the shoulder, and the light on the thigh can perhaps become integrated with the background if it's not painted. Over here, there's an opportunity for some connections. I had thought about those things prior to putting the brush on the paper. So these are things that I will be thinking of, and you can watch for them when they happen. I like to work with a round brush generally with my figures. I don't have a good answer for why, but because this is a half sheet of paper and there's some large areas here, I might go to a larger brush just to get in those bigger areas. So I'll have them ready. I like to keep my sketch and my photograph in an area where I can see them. Another reason for the sketch that I didn't mention is to be a helpful friend as I paint. If I get involved in the painting and I lose my way, if you will, I can look at the sketch and it can remind me of the direction in which I was intending to go. So let's get some water on. I don't usually work wet into wet, but I'm going to a little bit today.
Tom?
Yes.
Do you have a general concept of what your palette will be or what colors you intend?
Not yet. I'll tell you when though. I mentioned stuff. I mentioned on the fly. That's the big word of the day, or words of the day. I'll generally start with the figure. I'll generally for my skin. I don't want to say I always do because I'm not a formula kind of thing, Peter. One day I'll feel one thing, and another day I may feel something else. But with the skin, and this is a Caucasian. It was kind of neat. He was at the airport waiting for a flight to Iceland. Anyway, I'll mix primaries. So for example, I have a cad yellow and a cad red. And then I can add a blue, let's say a cerulean. And I'll mix them to create a skin color for myself. And then I can swing warm to cool as I'm painting. Sometimes I'll paint using a color right out of the tube, maybe a burnt sienna, with the idea that that's the red. I don't lock myself into the exact primaries, but I do like the idea of that being able to swing warm to cool. I think I'll put a background in that's something on the neutral side with some indication of color. That doesn't look very neutral, does it? Let's forget neutral. Let's just do that then. So I'm going to move into the figure right from the background, pick up some of this. Mix that flesh that I was referring to a moment ago. Doesn't look like it on the paper, but it will be once I get going here. I paint through the eyes generally. I don't leave them white. I think it's important to begin with a pretty good drawing, a reasonably good drawing.
it's been said many times that no amount of good painting can save a poor drawing. Well, I was a retoucher, so I've done that. I've saved it. I don't want to be too neutral. I want to let there be some lively color here, and so I'm not being afraid of that color. And I don't like to over brush the paint. I like to leave things alone and then respond to that later as I progress in the painting. Okay, so I have some connection here to the head, and that may or may not stay. I have begun to connect the beard to the shoulder.
Tom, do you always stand to paint?
I do a lot. If I'm working on smaller pieces like some of those, I may sit.
Do you raise the table up at all?
I have a table that can tilt, so it,
Right,
you know,
okay.
yeah.
So are you painting on dry paper now?
I am, and I'm most comfortable doing that. But to be honest with you, as I progress, sometimes I end up just painting wet into wet because the paint that I put down prior on the dry paper is still wet and I'm coming back into it. And at that point in time, you could say it's wet into wet. I also turn the brush. I like to activate the wash with what I do with the brush. And so, you know, this color I'm adding now is not something that I planned. So that's this idea of painting a little bit on the fly, if you will. But I'm not just making decisions because it's just whimsical out of from my gut. Some of it is, but I'm also looking at what's happening and thinking about what's coming, and those decisions then are based on that information. I often say I would rather fail on the side of fresh paint. So in other words, if the painting doesn't work, I want to still be able to look at it and say, well, it didn't work, but darn, does that paint look nice? Because when you look at a watercolor, that's what you're going to respond to first, is the paint quality. And I'd rather have that paint quality be nice than have my painting, whatever it might be, perfectly done, but overworked and the paint quality has suffered for it. I'm in the area of the hand right now, and sometimes we tend to overwork the hand because it's tricky, and I would rather not do that. And just lay in a bit of a suggestion. Wow, he's really blue, isn't he?
Looks like a bad day.
Yeah, that's what it is, my blue period, that's it. I can take all the help I can get, that's a good idea. I was just gonna say that too, it's my blue period. Okay, so now this is that area where the color change is significant. Going from my blue to my red period. You know, I've been called all sorts of things. Most of them are pretty correct. I'm a direct painter. That's what I am. I like the immediacy of my brush strokes. If I can get them to be fresh and active, I like that look. So I've been called loose, whatever, but you know, there's an immediate quality to the brush. And it's, you know, it's always helped me because I'm Italian and my hands are moving so fast anyway, so I might as well put it to good use. I want there to be some connection to the borders, so the legs come down. They may not finish, but the leg comes down, and there will be a connection there, and there will be a connection with the other leg too.
Could you pass your other sketch around so your black and white?
Sure.
Because it's kind of hard to see anything from back here.
Yeah, I imagine that's difficult. I'm sorry. Now I will come back and go over this and bring more life to it. I can also adjust the color a bit too. Something sounds really good.
Celery.
That's like celery. Sounds like my wife. My wife and her vegetables. I thought maybe it was Cheetos or something. So, let's see if we can bring something else. So here's where there's some wet into wet. That'll be a nice bloom right there. So what's happening here is I'm not stopping to let it dry. In fact, I don't know what the plan is. Do we take a break or something? But I just keep painting. And now I like that because it encourages things to happen on the paper that might not otherwise happen if I was waiting for it to dry.
You should take a break around 10:30.
Well, just tell me when that is. And
Half hour.
No, 20 minutes.
Ken teases me. He says he'll be done in a half hour.
Hope you brought another one.
So you can see that along my edges there's a lot of action, and that pleases me. And just like when you're painting, you want to please yourself. So I'm trying to please me, and that pleases me.
You're talking edges between the clothing? Or
I'm talking edges anywhere and everywhere. I like them varied, and I forgot that I should connect this. So now I have to do it after the fact. So I've got to go back into what's already there. As you can see, I'm putting in some darks now. That's important to me, so I'm trying to get that dark statement in, which I can judge against as I progress.
So Tom, the area under your legs, is that where you got to your initial dart that you were seeking?
Down here probably, yes. And then I can use that as I go forward and go back up. Now sometimes it's, you think you have it and then you don't, but it really bothers me to go back into my darks 2, 3, 4 times. I don't want to do that, so I'm trying to, right now I'm trying to think and paint. That doesn't work. I would like to have that be it. It's the first time with the brush to put that dark in. It's immediate. I like the fresh look that it leaves. If it's not, okay, I can get back into it, but I don't want to do that more than twice if I don't have to, because it just steals the life from the paint, especially in the darks. If you go too many times. I don't like putting my fingers on my paper, especially with my olive oil that's dripping out of my pores. So if this thing doesn't, I always say what's fun about this is that if this art gig doesn't work, I can always try a comedian thing. Stand up.
Absolutely.
It's Probably a little late for that decision. Anyway, yeah, I don't like to put my fingertips on the paper. You have oils in your skin, so and the back of your palm and the side of your palm is much more sensitive to temperature and wetness. So I want to go back into the face now. But I don't want it to be damp, too damp, I should say.
Well, it's 15 minutes. It's 15 minutes before our break. You want to take a break now? Would it be better for you for your painting?
Well, maybe a couple more minutes. I could wait. But that's, you just sat down, it seems like, doesn't it? Yeah, take a break. Yeah, I can keep painting. Yes.
How do you decide your value variations, whether you're going to do it through color or whether you're going to do it through the concentration of the paint, if that makes sense?
Value versus color, is that what you're asking?
Well, with value, it seems as though some colors have a higher value than other colors.
Well, yes, out of the tube, let's say a cad yellow is lighter in value than an ultramarine blue.
And then you could also create a difference in values through the amount of concentration of the paint.
Yes, yes.
So is there, do you decide which you're going to do, or
Well, this, can you see
whether
this?
it'll be about the color or whether it'll be about the concentration?
Both,
Okay.
both. So here, you could say it's about the concentration, even though we're not talking color. It's very dense. The lead of the pencil has been used in a dense fashion, you might say, and so it's darker. We can't ignore that it is darker.
Right.
And then to achieve that with paint, two things are happening. One is an attempt to achieve that, and then there's also color. Okay, so, and a lot of people get those two mixed up. So right now, if I look at this, I don't think I have achieved the value that is being exhibited here, but I certainly have a very rich color. So if the question I have to ask myself now is, do I want to go darker just because my sketch says it's darker, or do I want to leave it as it is? And I make those decisions. I don't feel like, any more than I feel like I'm locked into this, I don't want to feel that I'm necessarily locked into this. But if I were to be, I would look at this and say, well, I have to go darker here. But I'm making that decision. I'm looking at it, asking myself, is that dark enough? Maybe I don't have to go darker. So what I'm going to do is go back to the head, try to bring that head to a greater sense of finish, if you will. And then I'm going to judge everything against that, because that's the pièce de résistance. The glory of this is the head. As human beings, we will always gravitate to the face, to the head. So I know that everybody's going to look at that, regardless of how, someone might say, that's a great shoe, but they're going to end up at the head, okay? So I will try to bring this head to some degree of finish, and then I'm going to judge against it. Now, although this is active, overall it's a little flat. I think it needs more of this kind of stuff in it, more darks, which is what this was asking for in the first place. This was saying the whole thing is going to be darker. So it may end up that way.
And you'll make it darker through more of the blue, for instance, in the blue part, more of the blue, or would you make it darker through adding?
That's a good question. I'll go more of the blue, but I might not be so. Well, I like that I changed some color in here, so I may let that talk to me. But what I don't want to do necessarily is put something on top of that that's going to neutralize the blue. So I would choose maybe a green or an orange or something like that, maybe a blue-green. But I don't know that I would bring an orange in there or something that would neutralize the blue. So it'll stay on the cool side overall. So what we'd say is that this is a very cool shirt or whatever it is he's wearing. But if you look closely at it, there are nuances of other color, which brings interest into that wash. So it's still blue overall, but it has some other color introduced into it so that it has interest. I will probably do the same thing with the second wash, which will darken it. If I go over all of it, it will darken it, but I'll also probably stay somewhat in the family of what I've already done. That is a long answer to a very short question. What I'm really trying to do is stall so the head dries. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, there was going to be a bunch more, but they thought, God, this guy talks forever. I'm not asking any more questions.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get a smaller brush. Although this brush is a pretty good brush, has a nice point on it. I probably could do everything I wanted to do with this, but I'm more comfortable with a little smaller brush. So I'm going to take a 10. This was a 12 or a 14, I don't know, but this is a 10. So it's a little smaller. Whoa. It's a little smaller, but I'll have a little more control. And you can see also that in my sketch and in the painting, there's a consideration for light. Without light, there's nothing. Light is everything. So there's some consideration for the light on the figure, which is why this is a little bothersome, because it's kind of flat. And I think I can push it. I think that sketch that's going around, what's nice about that is it's more indicative of the light and shadow that might happen on this figure. Looking at this last night, I decided I was going to flatten it out some, let there be some, but not as much as you'll see in that other sketch. I'm a little bit still torn on which way to go here, and that's dangerous. There's nothing wrong with not knowing what to do. There's something really wrong with not knowing what to do while the brush is moving on the paper. So it took me a while to figure that out, but I found out that doesn't usually work for me. So I think I'll go toward what this is saying. In other words, I'm not going to say as much about the light and shadow on that figure, but I'm going to leave enough so that it's believable. Okay? So I'm going to go back where
What color blue is that?
that's a cerulean blue.
Cerulean. Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to where that cerulean brushstroke was put down, and there's that union with its head in the background. And I'm going to carve out a bit more of the head using that color.
Do you always paint standing up?
A lot. I like to get that distance between myself and the painting. So standing up encourages that.
With that low table though, you're getting a little too much distance.
Yeah, it's okay. I think I'm being a little timid here. I'm gonna go push it. There you go. I like to be inventive with my color. I don't want that photograph to rule me in so many ways, one of which is color. I like to be inventive and a little daring, if you will, and I'll push things. I like to use color as a means to attract the eye also. got an interesting beard. It's got gray, black intervals. Yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that in the painting. I'm afraid it may look a little funky. So I'm going to stay away from that. But I do want to give some indication of its value, being a little darker on one side versus the other. So I'm just doing a little bit of that now. Then I'm going to have to push the value beneath the beard. So this is where I get into that, going back to what I did, but being more forceful. And I want it to feel like it's a beard, so I don't want it to be too perfect over here. You're probably thinking, perfect? Where does that even exist on this painting? Maybe a little connection here. Let's really push it here. I didn't want that. Somebody mentioned black. I don't like that word in my, it's not in my vocabulary. I like dark, rich, colorful darks, but I don't want black.
You mix your blues, maybe use a cobalt blue and with a ultramarine, something to darken or lighten.
I am pushing into, I'm using them to make it darker. It's gotten pretty dark, so it looks pretty, almost looks black here. I'll let that be. I don't want to mess with that.
Are you using a lizard crimson?
Yes. There is alizarin crimson here. You know, it's a funny thing. The very thing that appeals to me is the inaccuracy. And, you know, so there's a method to my madness. but it's where and how much. I was talking to a group a little while ago, and I was telling them, you know, painting has, well, I think a painting has two lives. There's the life of the fruition coming into being, and then there's the life when it's finished, that it now is there for others to look at and hopefully enjoy. And we call that latter life, we call that art, but the truth is, the art of it is in the doing. That's the art. That's the real art, in the doing. I forgot the iPhone. It's got an iPhone. You know, we have them tied to our hips. I get razzed a lot because I don't have a phone. I'm an alien from a planet X. Yeah, I get that. I get that. So you'll notice I haven't stopped painting. See, I haven't, well, I did give you that long-winded answer, but you know, what you're seeing me do is what I usually do, and that is I paint through, and that's what encourages a lot of different edges. Based on with a more clear look with the mat around it. As you see, what I've been doing is I'm going down in size with my brushes. So I start with a large brush and I end up with something that's smaller because it's an example of the size of the strokes that are needed to achieve the desired outcome here. I was looking for my reading glasses and I must have left them at home, so. Someone mentioned, she said, I remember you when your hair was dark and you had more of it. And I said, must have been a long time ago. So you can add to that, I need my reading glasses. My wife, she's got a baby face, and she looks the same to me that she did 20 years ago. Meanwhile, every time I look in the mirror, I think, oh my God, and she's still with me. All right, so I want this area up here to, I hope, to have, oh God. Holy moly! Well, now I have no excuse. Yeah, now I have no excuse.
You typically do the face last of the portraits?
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know what I do typically. I intended to do this one first, and I didn't. I started, I laid a wash in, and then I continued on down, and I found myself progressing and leaving it behind. So now I'm back at it.
Do you stretch the paper first?
No, I used to, but I wanted to life, so I don't do that anymore. Besides, I'd wake up in the morning and realize I forgot to stretch my paper the night before, and then there I was, and stretching paper all morning, and all I wanted to do was paint. And I found that I really don't need to, and I think most people don't anymore either.
Do you ever paint on wet paper? Do you ever?
No, I don't generally.
Always dry?
Yes.
You're most often painting photos?
More often than not, yes. Yes.
How do you approach your subjects?
How do I approach them?
Yeah, if you see someone interesting you want to paint, or
It reminds me of a story. I was in Chinatown, and there was a great subject. Oh gosh, it was great. And she was beating a rug, and she had that, I don't know what you call that, round, pointed, and the sunlight, and it was just fabulous. And I said to my wife, I gotta get that. That's a painting. Oh gosh, there's a painting there. I said, I pulled over across the street, and got out of the car. Eventually, I told her I was gonna go ask her if I could take her photo, but my wife said, just take the photo. Right? Just take the photo. I said, no, I better ask her. Just take the photo. And I said, I gotta ask her. So she was kneeling down, and there was a woman next to her. The lady that I was interested in, she couldn't speak the language. I'm thinking and talking. So anyway, I go over and I ask her if I take a photograph. The lady that's standing interprets, and she goes, "No picture, no picture." So guess what I heard when I got back in the car? So I try to be discreet when I can, and if I don't think I can be, then I ask. So it's a judgment call. Like if you're sitting there and I'm over there and you're reading a paper on a bench in Chicago, I just take a picture. But if you're sitting here and I think, oh my gosh, But if you ask, everything changes. They stop, they move, they smile, and it's all over. So it's sort of a mixed bag. But I try to be respectful.
Take the picture, then go ask.
Sorry, Ken?
Take the picture, then go ask. Can I
Then what do you do? Go, nah, 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 nah. Oh, yeah. I almost didn't want to go back to the car because I knew what was going to happen. It's funny, when I drew this, I was sure it was drawn well. And now I don't like the way it looks. I'm not sure if it's the brush stroke or what I did, so I'm scraping out some paint. This is an oil painting brush, so it's stiff.
That's arches.
The paper is, yeah. Does anybody speak French? Somebody speak, how do you say that paper? That's
Papier.
arch.
Arch.
Arch?
Oh, arch.
I got a funny feeling if we had a Frenchman, I said arches, they'd probably cringe. So I figure it's got to sound something like that. Arch.
Then the French would say ash.
So do you
Fabriano is a lot easier.
do you notice any difference in Arches paper since they sold the company to someone else?
I've got a lot of paper that was gifted to me, so I haven't had a chance to buy new paper, so I can't say. Yeah.
I've noticed a few things.
Okay, so I'm going to move down and just articulate some of the fingers. This is going to be brief. you know, I try to do things that are large in my demonstrations because sitting there watching somebody fiddle around with a fingernail is just, you know, it's just boring. And I understand that watching someone paint can get boring.
I'm here for the fingers.
We like watching paint dry. That's why we're watercolors.
It's well said. Well, let's take a look at it.
Beautiful.
It has issues. Just like me, it has issues. So let's just attack a couple of those. When I'm in the studio, I have a little mirror. So I'll use the mirror. I didn't expect that. Leave that alone. Let's make a nice bold statement here. I have a student in Chicago. She's a wonderful painter, and she paints upside down. And I can't do that, but I certainly admire her.
She's upside down when she paints, or the painting is
The
upside
painting
down?
is upside down. The other would be a circus act.
So is she painting from a photo or is she painting from a person?
a photo.
You really?
I'm not afraid to put something down that I don't like, because I know I can get rid of it. And then I can just put in what I do like. Where's my brush? Okay. There it is. See, you already clapped. I'm doing this so I can get it twice. You know, you're gonna go home and your husbands or your wives are gonna say, "What was he any good?" I don't remember, but he's funny. Probably overstated. One of those times when I probably should just left it alone. Should just left it alone, Tom. I need my wife here to tell me when to stop. Take the picture, Tom. Take the picture. Am I doing okay time-wise?
Yeah, you got another 20 minutes if you need it.
Tom, are you using your reference photo still, or are you mostly just responding to the painting?
Oh, mostly the latter. But I am looking at the photographs for some little things.
Also.
Yeah. I think I got myself in a bit of a trouble here. And I don't like that, well, maybe I do. I was gonna say, I don't like that I can't see any separation, obviously, from the top of the thigh to the background, but I love the pencil. So I can't enter a lot of my works and shows because I love to see the pencil define things in some places. And I think that, there's a look to that that's part of a watercolor, for me anyway. And that wouldn't fly in some exhibitions. But it's flying here for me. So I think, for our purposes today, this is probably finished. So thank you. Thank you.